Do skeptics make you have a cow?
Well, let me see, darling. Is this one of those philosophical paradoxes like, how can you have your cake and eat it too?
You know, I've never really understood that saying. When I have my cake, I eat it too, don't I?
Yes, well, but what the saying is saying by having, darling, is having a still existing cake, a cake not yet eaten.
Oh, light bulb! So that's what that means. You know, you are one smart cow. Oh, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense.
Derogatory, don't be ridiculous, darling. I'm a cow. I am perfectly proud to be a cow. 100% beef, true and true. Which is why, to answer your question, no, skeptics cannot make me have a cow, for the simple reason that I am a cow.
Brilliant. But please let me rephrase or contextualize my question in terms of the book of Numbers, chapter 19. You know of the special sacrifice called the red heifer.
So now, because I am of the bovine persuasion, you doubt my literacy and good breeding? Yes, of course I know about the para aduma, darling. The red heifer was an exquisitely gorgeous cow of perfectly red complexion and coiffure, without two hairs on her body that weren't red. Such a cow was offered as a holy sacrifice, and its ashes were used for ritual purification of any Israelite who had been spiritually defiled by contact with a cadaver or a part of a cadaver, if you'll excuse the brutal imagery.
They will bring you a perfectly red heifer without blemish, upon which no yoke was ever laid.
They would bring the cow to the Kohen, who would take it outside the camp and slaughter it there and sprinkle its blood towards the tent of meeting. And then the heifer would be burned in his presence, entirely burned, smoke and ashes. Then these ashes would be mixed with water and then sprinkled on any person who had come in contact with something cadaverous. And this would purify them of the contagion of death.
Wow, talk about metaphysical glamour. What a unique sacrifice. She wasn't even offered up on the altar. And the entire procedure, as you mentioned, took place outside the camp. Even her one possible rival, the special sacrifice of the Day of Atonement.
Who, the goat of Azazel? Good gracious, darling, not in her class. The goat was not sacrificed as an offering to the glorious maker of the universe, blessed be he. No, darling, he was simply escorted to his death. She, the red heifer, was sanctified in a class of her own.
Yes, sui generis, quite so. And this is why she's introduced as the Chukat HaTorah, the decree of the Torah, the decree.
The decree par excellence, yes. And now listen, my dear, I do hope you are able to actually say something interesting about this unique exemplary status. What was your phrase?
Sui generis, in a class of her own.
Sui generis. Latin is such a wonderfully elegant language, n'est-ce pas?
And Hebrew?
Hebrew is in excess of elegance, my dear. It is positively sublime. Chukat HaTorah.
And it's this Hebrew word, actually, chukah, that accounts for the unique, exemplary, paradigmatic status of the red heifer. You see, there are other commandments in the Torah that belong to the general class of chukim.
Yes, refresh my memory.
For example, the prohibition against eating pork, or of wearing clothing made of a blend of wool and linen, or purification by immersion in living waters, the mikvah. There are many such commandments, all of which participate in a mysterious holy logic that's not quite intelligible to the human mind. That's why they're called chukim, decrees.
Yes, I like how you say not quite intelligible. Are chukim intelligible at all?
To a limited degree, yes. The chukim generally do have some type of overarching rationale that makes sense, to a degree. But the specific details of these commandments really defy comprehension.
And the details of the red heifer sacrifice do not make sense either? Caesar, of course.
Not only do the details not make sense, the whole thing utterly flouts all logic, rhyme, and reason. The red heifer is a holy sacrifice that completely upsets and overturns the most basic conditions of being a sacrifice.
The most basic? So it's not a holy sacrifice?
It is very much a holy sacrifice, but a holy sacrifice, by definition, is something that is prepared and sacrificed in the holy Mishkan or in the holy temple on the holy altar. But the red heifer was prepared and sacrificed entirely outside these holy precincts.
As if God wished to make it perfectly clear how extraordinary she is. How marvelous.
And here is the really interesting thing.
It gets more interesting, darling. How very exciting.
All the other chukim can bring a Jew into a state of inner self-doubt. When skeptics point out the irrational elements in these chukim, the Jew may feel embarrassed at being unable to provide reasoned justifications for these elements.
Well, the Jew must simply resist being persuaded by skepticism.
Exactly. But in the case of the chukah par excellence, the divine decree that is irrational through and through, this decree is not even susceptible to refutation. It's patently paradoxical and irrational. So the critics don't even bother to refute it.
Don't even bother. You mean the critics and cultured despisers of the Torah lay down their criticisms?
Yes, but only to do something worse. Instead of criticizing, they simply mock the Jew for subscribing to an openly irrational religion.
I see. And this is where the Jew is tempted to have a cow.
Exactly.
Which does not mean to eat a lot of kosher filet mignon.
Exactly. The mockery of the Torah despisers does not merely embarrass the Jew for lacking explanations for the red heifer, it threatens to fill the Jew with a total anxiety over the fact that no such arguments exist.
Well then, there is really no way around simple Jewish elegance, confidence and pride in God and His Torah. The Jew must simply refuse to enter into arguments and self-justifications.
The Jew must simply refuse to have a cow.
But what a marvelous opportunity is at play here. The chukkah is precisely the opportunity to rise above all the self-doubts and anxieties that tempt one to find some way to mediate one's relationship with God through reason and so on. It's the opportunity for a non-mediated, more immediate connection to God. Isn't that just marvelous?
The chukkah is an opportunity, by the same token, for the Jew to embrace the supra-rational core of his or her own soul. After all, when something is done only because it makes sense, this only involves the more peripheral faculties of the soul, like thinking and intelligence.
But when a mitzvah is done without any appeal to a because, this shows that it is you yourself, your innermost self, that is involved.
Which constitutes the true dignity of a Jewish soul.
How marvelous, darling. Genuine dignity always comes with an ability to ignore scoffers, with all their much ado.
Not having a cow over the much a scoffing of a little skepticism.
And the best way not to have such a cow, darling, is of course
To be a cow.